Welcome to Sports Saved My Life. My name is Clayton Freck, and I'm the CEO and founder of Angel City Sports. We know the power of sport to change and in some cases save lives. We hear these compelling stories every day, and we created this show to share them with the world. Enjoy the show, and remember to like, follow, share, and comment. All right, so today I'm really pumped to welcome Ian Seidenfeld. Did I get that right?
Yep.
To the show. Born and raised in Lakeville, Minnesota, he has pseudoachondroplasia. How'd I do that? Dwarfism.
Achondroplasia, dwarfism, yeah.
Pseudoachondroplasia, dwarfism. It's a mouthful. He found table tennis early in life at the age of 4 or 5 because his father, Mitch, is a 3-time Paralympian and a gold medalist from the Barcelona Paralympic Games in 1992. And his father's a renowned coach in the para table tennis community. At 12, Ian started to travel to international competitions. He quickly rose to an elite level, actually made the Tokyo team after winning gold at the Para-Pan American Games in Lima in 2019. He's currently the youngest player on the U.S. table tennis team going to Tokyo. And, I'm just excited to connect with Ian. I've known his father for many years through my heading over to junior nationals. And welcome to the show, Ian. Really excited to hear your story.
I'm happy to be here.
So, Ian, I always start every show. What comes to mind when I say the title, Sports Saved My Life? For you, personally.
I think it's the fact that sports has played an integral role in my life, in my family's life, actually, going back to my grandfather who played sports and taught my dad how to play sports, and my dad teaching me how to play table tennis. So it's played an integral role in my family's life for sure.
What would you say sport gives you?
I think it gives me an outlet to be physically active, even with a disability, as well as to compete with others on equal footing and really levels the playing field despite physical differences.
It does. My guess is you beat non-disabled players all the time in your training, so I don't think I want to go up against you. In one sentence, how would you define or describe yourself?
I think of myself as a competent person that will work as hard as I need to achieve my goals.
I like that. So in the intro, I mentioned where you grew up and where you're raised, but paint a picture of your childhood.
I think my childhood was a very comfortable one. Growing up in Lakeville, Minnesota, it's a suburb about 30 minutes away from Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And it was a very friendly area where people always kind of accepted your differences and never really felt like I was out of place for sure.
How big is your town?
Well, my high school, my graduating class was about 1,800 people.
Well, that's good size.
Yeah, so I can pride myself. Our graduating class, our football team won the highest class football state championships the year I graduated. So I can take pride in that.
That's great. How big population-wise is the town?
I've seen the sign. I've passed through the sign coming into the town many times, but maybe 20,000, 40,000 could be around there, or I could be way off.
So sort of did you feel like you kind of knew people in the community when you and your family would go out for a bite to eat or go to the local gym or rec center, or does it have that sort of small town feeling?
Somewhat. It's not that small, but you definitely know a lot of the people, and a lot of the people I grew up with. I went to kindergarten and then graduated high school with them.
Mm.
Uh, so it was stable there, but uh, and depending on where you go, there was always, after the football games, people would go to Applebee's, or a lot of people go to the local Lifetime gym. So
Right, right. So uh, you're in college now, right?
yep.
So I want you to think back to when you were a younger kid. Like, what kind of kid were you?
I was very competitive as a young kid. I think starting table tennis at a very young age got me playing sports. Then I also played baseball.
Mm.
I always kind of tried to be the joker, I guess, the maybe a bit of a class clown, trying to make jokes in class and stuff. And
You seem so serious, though. Is that true?
yeah. I was very comfortable making fun of myself, I think. Or maybe I just didn't know I was making fun of myself. But it was always fun to laugh more so in class rather than listening to the lectures.
Oh, wow, that's true. That's true. What was family life like for you? You got siblings? Like, what's the family life look like?
I've got one older sister who's 3 years older, who's also has dwarfism, and both of my parents have dwarfism.
Mhm.
Uh, my father having pseudoachondroplasia dwarfism, and my mom having achondroplasia dwarfism, which is more common.
And what are the differences in the two forms of dwarfism?
Um, so my mom's the more common achondroplasia. You probably can picture that uh, they have uh, maybe different features in that they're larger. Usually, they're taller, stronger.
Mm.
They don't have as difficult orthopedic issues like me and my father with pseudoachondroplasia. Our joints and the cartilage in those joints are underdeveloped, or so basically my hip joints, I don't have a ball where the hip joint would sit in, a ball would sit in the hip joint. It's more rigid, so
Mm.
nothing fits perfectly, and so there's a lot more orthopedic pain. And I've had 3 leg surgeries to correct bow bowed leggedness. So that's some of the differences, not all.
And what are those surgeries entail? Like, do they knock you out for months at a time, or are you back on your feet with it? Like, what is it? What does one of those surgeries look like?
Well, in the most gruesome way, I think they put me to sleep, and then they break my legs in a few different places. For me, I've had them. Uh, they've broken both legs at 2 spots, both on the upper leg and the bottom leg of both legs at the same time to kind
So
of
so there's 8 breaks.
4.
Oh, I thought you said so. One upper per leg and then one lower per leg.
Yeah, and then for on both legs, so at the same time. And so for all of them, it's about 2 to 3 2 months, 3 months in a cast, and then uh, after that, sort of slowly recovering to being able to walk better.
So when do you do that? Do you do that while you're in school, or do you do that in summer? What do you do?
Well, my parents love to do it right before my birthday, usually. Some One of them right on my birthday, I
Happy
think, the
birthday,
day
Ian!
before.
Like, here
Yeah,
you go.
it's a very expensive birthday gift, they tell me. So, um, yeah, so it's usually in the summer. So I recover over the most of the summer, and then I start school. Maybe the last time I was walking with a cane to school because I thought it would be cooler than walking with a walker. Yeah.
Were you right? Was the cane cooler?
Oh, it was a very cool cane. Yeah, it was a very, very cool cane that was owned by my grandfather before. It has a kind of cool, almost tiki looking matte face on the top end. So um, it was pretty cool.
Wow, that's a good story. So, do you remember how old were you when you had these surgeries? Because that seems pretty traumatic.
I think in my family, it's definitely been normalized. My father had many, many surgeries, back surgeries, leg surgeries. When he was younger, he's had 2 hip replacements.
Mm.
My mom has had 1 major back surgery. My sister's had a major back surgery, and a leg surgery. So I had my first one when I was 5,
Mm.
and then another one at uh, 12 or 13, and then my last one was when I was 17, I think 16 or 17.
So, in your family, it's sort of, as you said, sort of been normalized. It's sort of par for the course, which is tough to hear. Because any surgery, especially of a kid, is not fun.
Uh, yeah, no, it wasn't fun, and the more I knew, kind of, I think when I was 5, I was told I kind of dealt with it pretty well. I think because you don't really know what's going on when you're 5. All I know is I didn't like apple juice because they put medicine in the apple juice that made it taste awful. Um, but then as you grow up, you're like, I wish I had my summer back. I wish I could do stuff this summer.
Yeah.
But
How
uh,
did you let's go to the one when you were 17. How did you stay positive? And because that was just a couple years ago.
yeah, that one had different circumstances, and this might be a longer story than
Mm.
you might want. But so right before that, in June, I had played in a 2 tournaments in the a German tournament and a Spanish tournament for table tennis, and I had my best results ever. I had beaten the current Paralympic champion from Rio at in one of the tournaments.
How good did that feel, by the way?
It felt amazing. It wasn't in the finals yet though, so I
Oh,
couldn't
really?
be too over excited. Yeah, it ended up in the semifinals, and then I won the finals of that Bayreuth Open tournament. Um, so I moved up my ranking to being up to 12th, I think.
Mm.
And then the next month, I knew after playing that tournament, my legs, I could barely walk after that tournament. So I had to get surgery. And then there was the 2017 Pan American Games Championships, which was the qualifiers for the World Championships in 2018,
Mm.
coming up in November of that same year. So I kind of had a drive that where I knew I was going to have surgery, break my legs, do it again, right? But I had kind of a goal I had to accomplish where I had to go to Costa Rica and try and qualify for this 2018 World Championships.
God,
And
most people don't say, "Yeah, I had to go to Costa Rica." It's like,
if you, I, my legs were still broken at the time. So, and
oh, that's the tournament you had metal screws still in your legs and you were still healing and you still did well.
I got second at the tournament, which wasn't enough to qualify, but it was a good enough showing to help me qualify later on.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay, good stuff. I'm gonna go back to your comment about being kind of the class clown. Uh, did it ever get you into trouble?
Um, I always like to think the disability helped a little bit with teachers never wanting to go too hard on me. I was also a pretty good student,
Mm.
so and I never did anything too disruptive. I
Mhm.
didn't like that kind of way to make. I didn't like making fun of people either. That wasn't the fun things to do.
You were making fun of yourself.
not making fun of myself, but making fun of situations and just kind of having a laugh and stuff. I know actually it was a little making fun of myself. I remember I think one of my friends loved when I would hide in like a recycling bin or a trash can and then pop out when the teacher comes into the classroom. I think that might be a good personification of um,
So
the of
the
a third
teacher
grader.
leaves the room for some purpose, and you jump into the trash can to hide.
Yeah, like a recycling bin, and then uh, in second or third grade, that's the kind of things you find funny, I suppose.
And then what, you would like jump out and scare the teacher?
Yeah.
And you never got in trouble for that?
No.
Wow. That's good. Tell me about growing up with your disability. And you mentioned it early in the top of the show that you generally felt accepted by your community, where the friends, school, neighborhood kids. But it was always the case where there's some kind of rough, some rough spots in there. And is there a point where you just sort of owned your disability and sort of didn't care what other people thought?
Um, yeah, I think when I was younger, there was one or two incidences of where people would just like pick me up or something, or I didn't like it at the time, or they would name call you, but anything that like normal kids would do, right, in elementary school.
Mm.
Um, Overall, growing up, going into middle school and high school, I don't think I ever really felt affected by anything people said. Really, I think if they did, I would always either I would have words for them that were um, good responses, I suppose, or I always had friends that were around that wouldn't let people do that.
Mm.
So I always had some good people around me, and I think to your question about owning it,
Hmm.
um, hmm, I always felt confident kind of in myself. Um, I worked hard to get good grades. Um, I felt confident that I'm a good enough athlete. I played table tennis and played international. I got to travel internationally. So I got a lot of benefits from having this difference or this disability
Mm.
that a lot of people at my school were um, sometimes envious of. They always were like, wow, you get to go to Europe or something. And so I think uh, a combination of my uh, natural ability and the things that I was afforded because of my disability really helped.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're kind of reframing disability for yourself, almost sort of flipping the script, and you're able to see the positives. You're able to see the benefits that that are you're getting that wouldn't have been afforded without the disability.
Yeah, and I think my parents did a great job of um, teaching me that I mean, if I look in a mirror and I look at myself, I don't see myself as weird or different or not normal. I'm normal to me.
Mhm.
Maybe if other people want to compare me to someone who's average average height, then I don't look as normal. But I think
Mhm.
when I'm with myself, I'm definitely normal to myself.
No, that's great. That's beautiful. And if you do you know many other dwarves? Like, is that are you? I know your father was connected to the Little People of America, so maybe earlier days, and he even competed in the dwarf games, I think, a few times, kind of earlier in his career. Are you connected to that broader community?
I think my dad and my mom, they actually met at an LPA convention.
Oh, really?
So I think there is a strong little people community or dwarf community. And I went to different LPA conventions when I was younger. Um, I didn't get the same experience. I know my sister made a lot of great friends from that.
Mm,
I for some reason didn't. I don't know why, but and I went to one of the dwarf games. I
mm.
think when I was younger too, and I had fun. But I don't have a massive connection to um, other little people. I suppose I don't.
Because I would think that you have sort of an inherent, you and your sister, frankly, have this sort of inherent advantage in the self-confidence game and the self-acceptance game, which is your parents, right, are dwarves as well. So it does feel normal. Even all the surgeries, to your point, seem normal. I wonder about children, that are born as dwarves into families where the parents aren't. Uh, so it's an interesting just to, because I think that whole the journey in self acceptance and building self confidence is so interesting, and I think just sharing everyone's stories and what worked is really important. What would you, to that point, what would you tell parents of a child born with dwarfism? Like, what would you tell them to sort of get their head, going in the right direction?
Um, I think everyone is able. So if you can push everyone to their limits of what they are able to do, and allow them to seek out what they're interested in. Obviously, not everyone is interested in sports or academics, um, but if they can find their passion for
Mm.
something, that goes a long way for whatever they're wanting to do, and that build self-confidence in their children. And if that's and that's a big point as a parent that you probably want. So um, help them find their passion and support them.
Yeah, I think that's great. And what I often say is, when it comes to the adaptive sports movement and people that find sport, uh, what a blessing to be able to define yourself as an athlete first, and a kid or adult living with a disability second, or maybe even lower than that. I don't know. It depends on who you are, but kind of nice to not have disability be that defining thing for you that has to be sort of addressed at every turn. I'd like to take a quick break to show you how you can get involved as a volunteer with Angel City Sports.
Are you interested in supporting Angel City Sports? We're seeking volunteers to help organize clinics and events, as well as support our athlete outreach efforts, marketing and media, and even fundraising and development. All skill sets and backgrounds are welcome in support of our mission to provide free adaptive sport opportunities for children, adults, and veterans with physical disabilities or visual impairments. For our younger athletes, we welcome you to join the Angel City Youth Leadership Council. Middle and high school age students are eligible to join the Youth Leadership Council, where you will learn about the disabled community by working side by side with our athletes and acquire important skills such as teamwork, leadership, philanthropy, and event management. To sign up for our volunteer newsletter and stay up to date on all upcoming opportunities, visit angelcitysports.org.
All right, let's talk about sport. And before we dig too deep into your competitive career, I'm curious if, I know you have a lot of love for and appreciation for your father, but kind of walk me through that relationship, especially as it pertains to table tennis. When did he sort of become your coach? You know, were you inspired by him, or were you inspired by somebody else, and that he happened to be, a table tennis legend in your household? Like, what was that like growing up with a elite athlete in your sport in your household?
Yeah, I think for the point of my dad being an elite athlete, I think I don't know I don't know if he's treated like an elite athlete or how you might think, but in our family, my mom uh, is a pretty good athlete as well. So but um,
Is your mom a better athlete than your dad?
she plays tennis about 3 or 4 days a week, and before the pandemic, she was swimming as well 2 or 3 days a week. Her body, an achondroplasia dwarf, has just they're much stronger and they don't feel as much pain on the daily that pseudo achondroplasia dwarfs
Mm-hmm.
have. Um, and in a lot of ways, when my dad was competing, he didn't compete in the 2000 and 2004 Paralympics because of me and my sister, uh, even though he was probably the best player in the world at the time. Um,
So
talk
he
more.
so he just opted not to go through the qualifying process, and sort of he was sort of, mellowing his own career out in that phase just to help raise the kids.
Somebody told him that he wasn't going to play those tournaments. Um, so if that makes
Does
sense.
that cause friction in the household, or has he accepted his fate there? That
I think it's been enough years, and now um, so yeah,
I'm gonna have to interview your dad one of these days, because that sounds like a great story.
he has a lot better stories than I do. I assure you. To the point of me and my dad coaching and stuff like that. I did idolize my dad, and I still do. I think he is
Yeah.
one of the best para table tennis players of all time. One of the uh, just a great player, one of the smartest players. Um, but our relationship isn't ever really. Uh, uh, there's always friction in some ways. I didn't get coaching from him until a few years ago, maybe. Uh,
Mm.
I just was unable to take coaching from him
Like,
emotionally.
just too close.
Yeah, I would get very mad at him, very frustrated in our lessons. Him telling me
Mm.
how to play, me having my own ideas on how I should play, and not wanting to listen, and um, so that's always been a bit of an issue. And I think in most aspects, I just um, so we try and work on as many things as we can right now.
Mm.
But it's definitely a very love-hate relationship, not in a hateful.
Yeah. But it feels like you at some point started to accept his coaching, and you sort of, it doesn't, I mean, you tell me, it doesn't feel like he did anything different. You sort of came around and matured. Is that a correct assessment? And what do you think was the impetus for that?
I think definitely I matured, and he also changed some aspects of how he coached me,
Mm.
which definitely made it tougher for him. But yeah, I think I just realized I getting out of my teenage years of being more moody and stuff, I matured and thought, man, maybe I don't need to get mad at him for telling me this, or I should just listen more, and that will help me um, improve a lot better in just a very just knowing that I can get farther by listening than not listening.
And and correct me if I'm wrong, but he was a team coach at the 2019 Pan American Games, and you were one of the U.S. athletes. So you had kind of a cool opportunity to travel to Lima, Peru with your dad and be on the same team. What was that like?
Um, we've traveled to pretty much every tournament together.
Mm.
So it would almost be weird not to travel with him. He's coached me in all the international matches pretty much.
Okay.
Just on a daily basis. We didn't coach until the last few years.
Mm.
Uh, I think we can definitely relate better to each other, and we definitely work pretty well together. And I know uh, we we keep on working on our in-game relationship as well, trying
Mm.
to make sure we know how much we need to discuss in the breaks between games.
Right. So if you look at your career, how much importance would you assign your father's role in your development as an athlete? I
I
mean,
don't I don't think it would. I mean, I don't know if I'd be playing if it wasn't for him,
mm,
on just in getting started as well as keep playing. It's
mm,
tough to keep playing for a sport for so many years, and when passion wanes and you want to just quit and hang out with your friends, um, but he never really, um, he knew it was better for me if I did keep playing, and I kept having these opportunities to keep playing. So it really just, he refocused me on what I did want to do,
mm.
and so it was a big part of how I kept playing.
I love that. Oh, that's great. And when did you realize that you could compete with the best players in the world? Because you're so young, and this is a sport where I think people age gracefully.
Hmm.
And I believe we even have, some at least one member of the U.S. team that'll be going to Tokyo with you. That's in his 40s, right?
Yeah, Paul Leibovitz was a former teammate of my dad. So when my dad was in his 30s and 40s, Tall was his younger teammate, um, causing him problems. So I'll pay Tall back with maybe causing him a few problems. But yeah, you can play longer into table tennis. Tall is probably slightly unique case. It's definitely getting more competitive now.
Okay.
Definitely getting a lot younger in table tennis as the more disabled players start competing. Um, but yeah, I think I didn't really know if I could compete until I won. Uh,
Mm,
so uh, and now, um, I think I know I can compete with anybody, um, but I'm not favored against a few players.
really. So, and are the athletes you compete against, are they full-time athletes, or are they like you, kind of balancing careers and school? Because you're still in school, so you can't just train all day.
Um, yeah, I think a lot of them probably have jobs, but maybe jobs associated with table tennis, maybe
Mm,
within their national governing bodies or something similar.
mm,
I'm not sure. I think in Europe, there are different systems that are more um, run by the government, where the players are subsidized better.
mhm,
Um, so they probably do play longer. I know Germany has a great system. The United Kingdom has a great system,
mm.
maybe the best in the world for table tennis, and a lot of the Nordic countries also do.
Got it. I just think it's cool to be so young and kind of coming after the top guys, but it's also cool to like, oh yeah, I'm kind of busy as a student, and this is like a part-time thing that you're just doing on the side.
I think my disability also plays a role in it. Having um, pseudo achondroplasia dwarfism doesn't allow me to play every day. Doesn't allow me to play 3 to 4 hours like a lot of people can.
Mm.
So that's a unique part of my disability, is that my body just wouldn't be able to hold up doing those types of things. So I need to monitor how much I play, um, in order
So
to.
so without the playing time of maybe some of your competitors, how do you how do you stay sharp? How do you keep progressing? How do you manage the limited training hours that you've got to
There's
leverage?
definitely just different ways to train, less physical ways. Uh, Also working on different aspects. I try and bike about 2 days a week right now, uh,
Mm,
maybe more. Right now, I'm sort of injured in some ways as well. Um, Working on service return is and serves are put less pressure on the body, as well as watching film and video always helps, and trying to understand angle of play better, all different concepts of table tennis.
So what you just said about serves and service return is you're not sort of trying to run back and forth. You're just sort of stationary. You're just trying to, get your shot, your angle right. So that's less pounding on the body.
Yeah, less. They're more explosive in some ways. It's
Sure.
similar to tennis, the service return, where you have to take a small jump step and make sure you're in position with small footwork, though.
Mm.
Doing pattern drills that will make you run around, I guess. Yeah.
Cool. Makes sense. So when you look at your relatively young career, what is an accomplishment or even a couple from a sports standpoint that you're most proud of today?
I usually go back to winning the Bayreuth Open in Germany, beating Peter Rosenmeyer, who was the Class 6 champion at the time in the Paralympics, and then finishing that tournament and winning the singles championships. As well as, I mentioned it before as well, coming back from having that surgery right after that tournament and then playing in the Pan American Games, where I had just probably started walking again on a limited fashion about a month before.
I mean, that seems pretty heroic to pull off. So that seems pretty amazing.
I don't know about heroic, but it was that
You're
difficult.
like the warrior that like hobbles back to the battlefield. He's just dragging his leg, and he saves the platoon or something. It's a good story.
So, yeah, maybe if you would describe it that way, I wouldn't. But
so give me just a real high level overview of the sport. So people that are listening, it's table tennis, but what are the nuances to it, and maybe a little bit just to how the classifications work and what type of athletes are eligible to do table tennis in the Paralympic system, that is.
all right. I'll start with kind of the nuances of the game. Table tennis is a different sport than I think a lot of the Paralympic sports, where you're playing against somebody. You're about 6 feet away, and it's unique in that it's got more spin, using different types of spin, top, under, different side spins, and you can really use that to your advantage. There is no physicality is a little less important, definitely plays a role, but you can use your different technique and different types of ways to play the game to your advantage, which definitely can change the outcome of the match. It's got a lot of strategy, takes a lot of mental capacity to try and maybe outwit your opponent, trying to do something different, change your game, depending on the situation. And then there's plenty more differences in table tennis, but
what's an example of like how you might try to outwit an opponent?
In a lot of cases, it could be on your serve, because with the serve, that's one of you hold the control of the ball the most. That's where you're doing that half the time, half of the match, right? So in that position, you can try and maybe make the person think you're serving a type of serve differently. So maybe you want to make them think there's topspin on the ball when there's underspin, or the vice versa. Or you want to, and it's all hidden in the motion. So you can hit your paddle, if you think of my hand as the paddle, right? If you hit the bottom of your racket, you can maybe get more underspin.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hit the top of your racket and do the same motion, you would get a no spin ball or a dead ball. So the way that the ball would react off of your opponent's paddle is a lot different. One would go maybe straight into the net. One would pop up if they try and push it like they think it's underspin,
Mm.
if it is in fact a dead ball. So that's sort of outwitting and trying to make them.
It's a little bit like a baseball pitcher trying to disguise the serve.
Yeah, I think in a lot of cases, having different options off your serve or off of even different shots is a lot like a baseball pitcher having a fastball, curveball, slider, and having as many of those good serves as possible helps you a lot in table tennis.
And having ways to disguise them so the opponent doesn't know it's coming. That makes sense. So talk to me a little bit about the classification system, because in every Paralympic sport, the classification system is different and unique. And, the whole system's set up to create a sense of fairness of play, essentially.
Yeah, I think in table tennis, just like in every sport, there's obviously conflicts, but generally speaking, there's 11 classes total. Classes ranging from 1 to 11. Classes 1 through 5 are wheelchair disabilities, so they play in a wheelchair. Class 1 is the most disabled, so quadriplegics, people that generally you would see them having to wrap their hand around the racket in order to hold the racket. And then that's similar to class 2. Class 3 is probably the largest wheelchair disability class, and it all depends on how high of a break in their back they've had or what their disability is. That changes between 3 and 4. And then in 5, some class 5s can walk in some ways or can stand, but they are wheelchair bound. So that's the least disabled on the wheelchair aspect. And then 6 through 10 are the standing classes, standing disabled classes. We'll get to 11 later. But 6 is the lowest, the most disabled class, usually meaning that your disability is affecting you in all 4 limbs. I'm a class 6 men's player.
So would you compete against, say, like a walking quad? Or
somebody similar, somebody maybe with advanced CP, somebody that's missing maybe 3 limbs, maybe has 1 limb, or missing parts of each limb. It's all very different because there are many different disabilities. But
you in theory, you could compete against players that are, very tall, that like you're not competing against dwarfs.
No,
necessarily.
No, I'm really one of only maybe 2 or 3 dwarfs in class 6. There's other dwarfs, achondroplasia dwarfs. There's one in class 8 who's very good from France. There's also a different type of dwarf that's a class 10, who's even less disabled. He's just short stature. And then going up, 7's slightly less disabled than 6's, affected in 3 limbs, maybe all 4, but less effect. 8's, 8's, 9's, 8's and 9's have kind of melded a little bit, where you're probably affected in 2 limbs and slightly, so maybe a lesser form of cerebral palsy or 1 bad leg. I know if you're missing a lot of 1 leg, that might qualify you for either 7 or 8. And then 10's, it's a very minor disability, maybe in missing a few fingers on your playing hand, missing maybe something wrong with your foot or ankle. But in some of those cases, you can't even see their disability. Right. And then class 7 is intellectually challenged disability, I believe. I don't know the specifications for how you get classified for that. I don't know if it's based on IQ test or some sort of test. But
yeah, I think it is what I've read. So there are 3 Paralympic sports: swimming, track, and table tennis, where there is an intellectual class. And I think you're right. There is some sort of IQ test or paperwork that has to be submitted. in order to qualify for that class. So only 3 out of the 22 sports have it. Let's take a quick break to learn more about the Equipment Loaner Program at Angel City Sports.
Part of our mission at Angel City Sports is to eliminate all barriers to participation in adaptive sports. Providing free adaptive sports equipment is a major component to this objective. Each individual piece of equipment can cost more than $3,000. Can you imagine if running shoes cost that much? So we're building an inventory of adaptive sports equipment to support our clinics, competitions, partner programs, and to loan out to emerging local athletes. Currently, we have racing wheelchairs, throwing chairs, and sport wheelchairs, perfect for tennis and basketball. If you or an athlete you know need a piece of adaptive sports equipment, visit the Equipment Opportunities page at angelcitysports.org. If you are interested in donating equipment or supporting the Equipment Loaner Program, email us at info@angelcitysports.org.
Okay, so talk to me about Tokyo, and you made the team by winning in Peru, but it wasn't as straightforward. So talk to me a little bit about that. That must have been kind of a roller coaster ride, but that obviously ended well for you.
Yeah, it did turn out well. So I did make it to the finals of Class 6, playing a Chilean player I had played many times before. I had played him in my group stage. I had beaten him in my group stage, very close in the 5th game. And then I played him again in the final because 2 people come out of the group. And I lost. I lost 3-0, actually. I think I played quite nervous. So I lost. At that time, I thought I was I was devastated in some ways and thought I had just lost my chance to directly go to the Paralympics, which was difficult. I played him again later in the tournament, actually, and beat him. I want to put that out there. I beat him 3-0 in the team event.
I love that.
Of course, I wish I would have won the other match previous, but 2 out of 3 is still all right. And then, and then I lose. I seemingly lost that tournament. I go to college, start college, telling people, I just lost my chance to go to the Paralympics. I probably, so I had a lot of those talks where I told people, I was just in Peru and I lost. And then about, I think April 14th was the day that I got a text from a friend saying, I think you're in the Paralympics. I said, what are you talking about? And then he sent me the article and I read it that my opponent had tested positive for a banned substance and that Ian Seidenfeld is now the gold medalist. So I got the gold medal a few months later. And so
you'll take it. You're not going to give it back.
It was a ray of sunshine, I guess, during the pandemic, I suppose.
Yeah. So the Pan American Games were in August, September timeframe.
Mm-hmm.
And so you didn't get the medal until April.
I didn't get the medal until
or even later.
July, August.
But you got notice in April, and then the medal comes a couple months later.
Actually, it may have been. It was a long enough time where I was kind of angry that I hadn't gotten the medal because it probably, I think it was over a year since the event had happened I didn't get the medal until
that's. But hey,
I didn't worry too much after.
You take it. So how did you handle the news of the Tokyo delay then? So about when they postponed the games is about when you learned that you were actually going.
Yeah. I think I was okay with it, knowing that I had made a lot of plans actually. In 2020, I was supposed to go to Tokyo for a study abroad for part of school. And so that was canceled as well. But I was planning maybe I would have to go to Tokyo and study abroad and then stay there and train until the 2020 Tokyo Paralympics. It allowed me a lot more time to train and get better. I don't think I was ready then to compete at the higher level, but that was really when me and my dad kicked it into high gear during the summer, getting more physically fit, really getting coaching about 2 or 3 times a week, 4 times a week actually, at multiple hours a week during that summer.
So that, yeah, well, yeah, what a blessing. I like to, because I've interviewed some older Paralympians and some younger ones like you, and it does feel different if you're young. That extra year of training and reps and working on the technical aspects and even the mental game as well, versus if you're at the tail end of your career, being a little bit older, like a little more tired, a little more beat up is not good. So it's interesting, the inequities of the Tokyo delay.
Yeah, definitely for different sports, it affects it differently. Table tennis, you have to be in practice, but if everyone's out of practice, it's different. But I think running and swimming, those are much more physically demanding too.
Yeah, for sure. So what's your home training setup look like? Like, are there just table tennis tables all over the house, like you can barely get around? Or is there like a room, or like what's going on at your house?
There's never really been a table tennis table at my house. My mom has never allowed table tennis in the home, I think. So we have a club about 20.
Not even in the garage?
No, nothing for the garage. And we have a basement. That's where I sleep actually. And no table in here. Yeah, but there is a club about 25 minutes away that that my dad runs. He runs the table tennis in Minnesota, so we had access to the club throughout the pandemic.
Well, that's nice. That's nice. And no one else really had access to the club.
It had to be shut down. Yeah, it technically was shut down.
All right. So that's a little silver lining for you guys. You guys had access. Yeah. I know a lot of track athletes, especially, and man, it really varied state by state, county by county, what people could, who could get onto a track of any kind, let alone a good track. So that's definitely a blessing.
Yeah.
But that's really funny that there's no table at your house.
Nothing for all these. Probably better to separate it though. For me.
That maybe, yeah, maybe. All right, so talk to me about your long-term goals and dreams in sport or beyond sport.
Yeah, so right now I'm studying at the University of Minnesota pursuing a degree in finance and entrepreneurial management. I hope to kind of continue my career, keep learning with different job opportunities. With table tennis, I hope to compete at least until the 2028 Los Angeles Paralympics, if I can. And just trying to find that more happiness throughout my life in the future too. I think that's another goal.
Happiness is a good thing to pursue. What do you think career-wise you want to do?
Well, I think I have a long-term goal in the future of becoming a CFO or owning my own business at some point. Mm-hmm. Two different things, but depending on where life takes me, I hope to kind of have more control over my work, I suppose. the ultimate goal.
That's good. That's what I did, man. I left the corporate world about 6 years ago to get Angel City started. So it's good stuff. All right, we are shifting into the final section of the interview, which is sort of the soul searching part where we dig in a little bit with you. But before the soul searching, what's a fun or interesting fact that I don't know about you that most people don't know about you?
I'm very flexible in my hands, especially. That's my sort of parlor trick. If I was trying to maybe gross out people, I suppose I can bend my hands back,
wow,
all the way and forwards.
And that doesn't hurt at all?
No.
Is it like the cartilage? Like what allows you to do that?
I don't know. I think I don't. I'm left-handed, but there's something with my bones that don't seem to.
They're just not in the way.
In some ways, I'm not sure. I always kind of joke that I must have broken a bone at some point when I was younger, and no one kind of noticed or something.
Oh my gosh! But it's only that hand, or the other hand too?
The other hand can be, but I've used it so much, the muscles the tendons are much tighter, I think.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's good. That's a good one. What has your disability taught you?
I think in some ways, for better or worse, it's taught me that I have to work harder. In some ways, just to improve myself, prove that I am what I think of myself as, prove to other people that I'm kind of normal. That's not a good way of putting it, but it's taught me that I have to work hard.
And is that because you want to prove people wrong that might think you can't do things or achieve things?
Probably. I do prove people wrong, but yeah, I think if I can change someone's perception of what a person with disability is or can do, that would be fun. But in some ways, I don't really care what people think.
Well, that's a hell of an attitude if you can keep that.
Yeah,
all right, you're young, so I'm so curious if you got an answer to this one. But do you have any regrets in your life so far?
So many. I have a lot of regrets.
Really? Let's hear them. Let's go.
I've lost a lot of table tennis. When you lose a lot of matches, you have a lot of regrets on how you played those matches, and so pretty much how I rectify that is by learning from those matches. Hopefully, I think not doing more of what I want to do. I think being afraid is not good. So even though I can maybe speak confidently or I can look confident now, I wasn't always as confident. So I didn't say some of the things that I wish I had in the past. And then in some ways you gotta, and so, yeah. So I'll probably try and make sure I'm okay with what I do or say is what I want in the future.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. What stresses you out?
I think a lot of things stress me out. I'm definitely a person who thinks about things a lot, overthinks about things a lot. And so anything that's maybe in the distant future that I can't get done right now, and will have to wait and work through for a long period of time, that can stress me out. If I have a lot of things I want to do and I can't do it, which is happening right now, I don't like that.
Yeah. Like an impatience.
In some ways, yeah.
Yeah. Is there a quote or a saying that you either refer to frequently or try to live by?
There are some things like I know Philip Rivers used to wear a hat or had a saying of nunc cepe, which is Latin for, I think, begin again, or just kind of forget about your past mistakes and keep going.
Mm.
So, but I don't usually ascribe to quotes, so that probably is not the best.
That's a good one, though. I like that.
If it's right. I think you maybe fact check that.
I'm not going to fact check you. You're good. I'm circling back now. So what do you think your purpose is?
I don't know. I don't think I know what my purpose is right now. That's what I'm searching for. I think that's what a lot of people say college is for. So hopefully by the end of college, I'll know that. But right now, I'm just kind of doing what feels right.
Yeah. That's all you can do. That's all you can do. All right. You get to wrap up the show. So is there anything we haven't covered? Anything you want to say? Anyone you want to acknowledge? The microphone is yours. And if you could also just let people know kind of the easiest way to follow your journey, whether it's the website or your Instagram handle, whatever is the kind of the best place to catch you and updates on what's going on.
Yeah. To whoever's watching this, to whoever's following me right now, thank you for your support. Thank you to my father, to everyone at my table tennis club that supported me and played with me in the past, and everyone who's kind of been around.
All right, great. So Ian, thank you so much for your time today. It was really fun to get to know you. I'm so excited for you in your journey to Tokyo. Bring home some hardware for our country and have fun. To your point, finding more happiness and more joy out there, not letting things stress you out. So we're rooting for you and excited to see how Tokyo goes for you. So I love Ian's work ethic and determination at such a young age. I encourage you all to watch for Ian in the Tokyo Paralympics. In our next episode, you'll meet Beatrice or Bea de la Valette, a para-equestrian athlete heading to Tokyo and also a survivor of the Brussels airport bombing.